Then console log Wednesday. Else if day is equal to 4, just bear with me. Console log Wednesday. I'll just copy this a couple of times. Day 5 would be Friday. Copy paste. 6 would be Saturday. And then else if day is equal to 7, it would be Sunday. So we have this thing. If you look at this, basically what the whole point of this program is based on what day is it, I need to console log this. Right now the day is 1, so we get console log of Monday. But if I change this to, let's say, like 5 or something, I get the new value here. But there is a better way to write the same thing instead of using this this else if custom. And the way we do the same thing is using this thing called a switch statement. And the switch statement is something which is very common across many programming languages, including C, C++, Java, and many other languages. And we have that in JavaScript as well. What we do is we have this thing called a switch statement, okay, where you will give it which keyword you want to search for. Like what is the keyword that you want to search for? And this can have many cases. Like what if the case is 1? What this means is we write the switch statement on the variable that you want to check against all the cases. Now, if the case is 1, which means if day is equal to 1, which is basically this block right here, we need to do the console.log of Monday. I'll just repeat the same thing for different cases now. So this will be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Tuesday, Wednesday, we have this now. But if you look at this, okay, first let me just give this a day of 7. When I give this a day of 7, what happens is, see, is the day is equal to 7? Yes, is currently day is the value of 7. Right? Let me just paste this here. Okay, right now the day is 7. So this value is equal to 7. So it does not match this, does not match this, does not match this, and we keep going down. And it will match this value of 7 because day is equal to 7 right now. And hence we end up printing this. Okay. Let's say we change this to 6. But observe what is happening here. What happens here is, see, because it does not match this, we skip this, does not match this, and we skip this. And we reach this point where the case is actually a value of 6. And hence we print this. But once it gets a match, everything below it, all the other cases will also be executed by default. That is a default behavior of switch. Like I told you, once the switch statement will meet the case it is looking for, then everything below it will be executed. Which means if I change this to 1, so I get everything from Monday to Sunday. And in order to avoid this behavior, if this is not what you want, what we should do is we should actually write a break statement here. When you write break, what happens is, see, once you enter a specific case block, once this line is run, you break out of the switch case. That's what the break statement means. And what will happen if I change this to 2 again? Because we do not have a break statement here, so everything starting from this and ending here, which means all of these statements will be print again. Which means we again have to have a break statement here. Okay, this is basically how you would write a switch case. Okay. Never forget to add the break statement unless that is what you want. Unless you actually want to run everything else, don't forget to add the break statement. Now, one more thing is, we can combine multiple cases. Like let's say I'll change this to 1, and what I want is both for case 1 and case 2, I want the value to be same. Right now day is 1, which means we'll meet this condition here, and hence we run this block of code. But even if you change this to 2, this will still run this code. Okay, what this means is if the day ka value is either 1 or 2, then run this statement. Basically, it's the equivalent of this if the case is equal to, sorry, if the day is equal to 1 or day is equal to 2. The console log Monday. We get this value is this, and this value is this. Okay, so basically, whenever you have to combine multiple cases and run the same logic or run the same code, you can combine the cases like this. Okay, one last thing is what see, when it comes to the if else statements, right? We can even add an else block at the very end, right? Let's say I have an else block. I'll add the day here. I'll add the else block and I'll say that incorrect number entered. Okay. What happens if I change this to like 100 or something? I'll get incorrect number entered. What basically this is like the catch-all block. If none of these are true, then we end up inside this block, right? So that is what the else block does. We can have the same behavior inside the switch statement by including this thing called default. Default block means whatever you enter, this will run if none of these cases have been met. For example, if I change this to entered the default block, see we get enter the default block here. Because right now the case ka value is I mean day ka value is 100, and there is no case for 100 here. Because there is no case for 100, we enter the default block. Default block is nothing but it's an equivalent to the else block. Just like how we have else here, whatever the functionality or responsibility of else is in this code, the switch statement has the same, and the default statement has the same exact functionality. Which means if this value is not met by any of these cases here, it will end up inside the default block. Okay, this is what you would use a switch statement for. So if you're basically just checking for one value against, if you're basically checking one variable against multiple values, the better way to go ahead is by using the switch statement. Okay, so any questions on this one, guys?
सर
Yes.
सर अगर हम केस 1 के बाद ब्रेक लगा दें, देन केस 2 लिखें, तो फिर केस 1 चलेगा?
हाँ, तो केस 1 तभी चलेगा जब द डे का वैल्यू विल बी 1. Now let's say I change this to 1, okay? So if I change this to 1, because there is nothing else inside the case block, it'll just break out of the entire thing. This Monday is coming from here, by this, so let's remove this code. See, we get nothing here right now, because what's happening here is, see, यहाँ पर 1 add किया है ना, लेकिन break के पहले there is no code only here, which means nothing will run. Which means if the case is 1, you just break out of the switch statement. That's it. Is that clear, Arjinder?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. So yeah, you can combine the cases. You can add a default case here, and remember to add a break if you do not want to proceed any further. Okay. this was about the switch statements. We are done with the conditionals part. Now next we'll. You have any question, Rajinder?
No, sir.
You were on unmute. That's why I asked. Okay, so that was what we were talking about. Okay, so next we'll talk about arrays. Give me 1 second, guys. Let me just open up my notes. Huh. Hmm. Okay, yeah. So, okay, so far we discussed about all kinds of primitive data types, right? So, what are the different primitive data types? We have numbers. We spoke about numbers. We spoke about strings. Spoke about booleans. We spoke about undefined. We spoke about null also. Now, these are some of the most important primitive data types. Okay. And primitive data types are there in every programming language. And these are the most common ones. By the way, one more thing is this is how you add the comments inside JavaScript by adding double slash. Now you guys must be learning Python as well. In Python, as you guys know, you use the hash. When you use a hash, that adds a comment, right? Now, similarly, you would use a double forward slash in order to add a single line comment. Like, this will be on a single line, but this is not. Okay. Now, when you have multiple lines of comments that you wanted, you have to add this on every line, like this, like one more comment, and then add a forward slash like this again. But the thing is, if you actually want to add a multi-line comment, there is a better way. That is by using this syntax, like this. Now, this can span across multiple lines. This is a multi-line comment in JavaScript, like this. Okay, this is one more way to add a multi-line comment JavaScript. And it's not that you cannot use this to add single line. It's totally up to you. You can even use this when this is a single line comment in JS. And this is also a single line comment. The only difference is this can span across multiple lines like this, but this one cannot span across multiple lines. Okay, that's how you create comments. And adding comments to your code is a very nice thing to do, because it not only helps you, but it also helps other developers understand what this block of code is used for. Okay, so always make sure to add descriptive comments wherever you can. Now, one more thing is you don't add comments where it's not required. Like, for example, if you add a comment called function sum a comma b, you return a plus b. Now, anybody who looks at this code can understand that this is a function that's used for addition of two numbers. So in that case, don't add a comment like this sum is for addition. It's not required, right? Because we already know what this sum function is doing. But if there's a function which is very, very complex, in that case, add comments there. Okay. Pranjal is asking what is shortcut, sir. So there's nothing called shortcut, Pranjal. I think you're talking about short circuit, right?
No, आप जो comment कर रहे हो सर keyboard shortcut कौन सा है?
अच्छा. I'm sorry. So the shortcut is see, I'm using MacBook, so it's command plus forward slash. And there is actually a shortcut. Okay, I'll tell you one thing. In the same thing in Windows would be, I think, Control plus /. This is a shortcut for that. But I'll tell you one more very important thing for you to know. So in VS Code, we have this thing called as a command palette. Command palette. It is very, very important. This can you can use this for doing many things. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you some of the things that you can use this very important things. First of all, how to launch this command palette. So in MacBook, it's Command plus P, and in Windows, it's Control plus P. Okay, when you do this now, see, I'm doing Command P now, and this thing opens up here. This thing is called a command palette. Now, first of all, you can use this to search and open the files that you want. Now, let's say I have these two files right now, right? So right now I am in index.js, but I have one more file called index.html. So I can use this to search and go to the specific file. If, for example, I'll do a command P again or control P, and then I open the command palette. So I'll type what file I want. So I get the file that I want. I can hit enter, and it opens up the page. Okay, this is how I can use the command palette for. Now, one more thing in command palette is, see, once it opens up the command palette, and when I hit the greater than symbol, now you can get many options here, many options. And this you can use to perform those actions, as well as look at what the shortcuts are. If, for example, see, if I type single, I think it's comment on this one. So see, I'm saying add line comment. So I can use this, or I can use this toggle block comment is basically used to add this wala comment. Wait, I'll show you again. Wait. So right now I'm here, right? So I'll open the command palette, and I'll click on greater than symbol, and I'll select this one, toggle block comment. It adds this up automatically. It means that is one more way you can actually look at all the tools that you have. One more thing that you can do is just look at this part here. This is the shortcut for using this specific comment. If you want to go to a particular line within the file, like let's say I have multiple bad name is called like this. Let's say I have multiple lines of code. Okay, so I'll add many lines of code like this. Let's add some. Okay, we have 81 lines of code. Now, if I want to jump to line number 32, so open the command palette, do greater than symbol, go to line. Once you hit enter, it'll ask you for what is the line number you want to go to. So I want to go to 67. Then it takes you there. Hit enter. That's it. Okay, so you can basically use command palette for a lot of things. And one more very important thing you can use it for is go live. No, I think it's live server. This one. So the one that we do with this now, like we click on go live, right? That we can do the same thing here. Open with live server. Okay, that was the one. That was about the command palette. Okay, yeah. So I was talking about that we have multiple primitive data types in JavaScript, but then now we are moving on to more complex data types. We're going to talk about this data type called arrays. Now, have you guys started learning about list in Python? Is list started, right? So basically it's the same thing in JavaScript. So we have this thing called arrays, which are nothing but lists in Python. Okay. Now what is array? So basically array is nothing but it's an ordered collection of values. That is the important thing here. Now let's say Okay. First important thing is, the first important thing is the arrays are ordered collection of data. What do you mean by ordered? So whatever value, whatever you store inside an array, they have a particular order. Like for example, if you have an Instagram post, all the comments inside of them, they can be put inside an array. Or one more example, if you play a game, okay, let's say you're playing a GTA 5 or Call of Duty, all the different levels inside the game, they can be a collection and they can be put inside an array. One more very simple example is you guys must be having like Geo7 or Ghana or Spotify. So all the songs within a playlist, okay, so all the songs within a playlist, even they can be part of an array. Okay, so arrays are nothing but ordered collection of values. You can store all types of values within the arrays. Both Rajinder and Pranjal are correct. So you can store like different types of data, and everything within the array will have a index number. Okay, let's talk about creating arrays now. The way you create an array is, let's say const students will be an empty array. Okay, this is nothing but we have just created an empty array. The arrays in JavaScript, they have the syntax of square brackets. Okay, just like how you have in Java, C, C++, and Python as well. The arrays in JavaScript also have the same syntax. Okay, this is how you create a new array in JavaScript. And there's one more way as well, which is by using const users is called a new array. But we'll talk about it a little bit later. Okay, this is not very important, and you would actually almost never use this to create an array. You would always create a new array using this syntax right here. Okay, so like I was saying, this is how you create an empty array. Like right now there are no students in this array at all. One more example is, let's create an array of colors. Let's say I like the colors red, orange, and yellow. So I add red, I add orange, I add yellow here. Okay, basically you add the different values and you separate them by commas. Okay, one more example is, let's say we have some numbers carry. Let's add 19, 22, 56, 32, 67. This is an array of numbers. And you can also have a mixed array. Okay, let's create a mixed array. Mixed array ka matlab hai we'll add different kinds of values within the array. So let's say we have const stuff is equal to, we'll add a boolean, we add a number, we add a string, we add null, we add undefined as well. Okay, you can add all kinds of values within the array. Okay, now next important thing we have to talk about is all the items inside the array, they have an index. Okay, which means arrays are indexed. Arrays are indexed because so everything inside the array, every element within the array has an index. Let's create the colors array again. Let's say I have red, I have orange, and I have yellow, and I have green as well. Here we have these colors inside the colors array. Okay, again remember this is an array of all strings, and every element is separated by the comma here. The first thing I want to talk about is you can find out the length of this array by using colors.length. Okay, just like how you have the length property on a string, you also have a length property on the array as well. Okay, just to reiterate, if I create an array, if we create a string like this, const string is equal to something I like. Okay, if I want to get the length of the string, is string dot length. Okay, like this. In Python, you would use len of something, len of string, but in JavaScript, you would use string dot length. Okay, you would use the length property on both the string as well as an array. All right. Now we're talking about the indexing part. Now let's say console.log indexes. Okay, now let's create. Okay, now like I told you, right? So inside the array, the indexes always start from 0, which means this is the 0th element, this is the first element, the second, and the third element. Now the way we get the first element within the array is using the colors, and we use the square bracket notation, and we enter the index value. We get index values. Okay. So the colors array, so at the 0th index, will give you back the first element. Same way we do for 1, 2, 3, and 4. We get this is at the 0th index. This is the first index, the second, and the third index. But if you observe something, I tried to access a value within the array. I tried to access an index out of bounds, right? If you look at this, the last index is 0, 1, 2, and 3. There is no index of 4. Now, in other programming languages, that would actually give an error. In fact, in Python, that does give an error, right? But in JavaScript, it doesn't give an error. JavaScript, when you try to access a value which is out of bounds, which is not there in the array itself, like there is no index 4 here because the last index is 0, 1, 2, 3. Now, when you try to access a value, when you try to access an index which is not there in this array, that returns to you undefined. Okay. So if I say that if I try to get like 100, which does not exist within the array, that also returns undefined. Okay. It does not throw any error. JavaScript will return undefined. Okay. This is what we mean when we talk about the arrays are indexed. Okay. Now let me ask you guys something.
Sir.
Rajendra, tell me, yeah.
तो जैसे हमने एरे में किसी एलिमेंट को असेस किया, जैसे मैंने ऑरेंज को असेस किया.
ओके.
तो सर एक मैंने ऑरेंज के, सर अगर मैंने ऑरेंज का ए पे जाना हो तो वो कैसे करेंगे?
विद इन ऑरेंज ये ए वाला.
जी सर, ए पे आना, अभी ए पे कैसे आएंगे अगर ए को प्रिंट करना हो तो?
अगर ए को प्रिंट करना है तो 0, 1, 2 like this.
Okay sir.
Let me tell you something. So like I told you, right? So like when we spoke about this about strings, let me create a string here. Let's say const user is equal to Aditya, like this. Okay. Remember I told you that the strings are also indexed, which means the character will start from 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Right? If you remember, we even have methods that give us the index of a value. Like if I want to get the index of D, I have to just do user index of D. So I get back. Sorry. Why is this coming? Yes, so I get back 1 here. Okay, this means that the strings are also indexed. They also have indexes here. Now, similarly, the way I access this thing here, I can also access the characters within the string by using the square bracket notation like this. User of 0, A. User of 1, D. User of 2, I. You get the idea, right? This is how I access this. Now, what is happening here is in this specific thing. First, let's break this down, okay? So, so colors of 1 will return this orange thing, which means this will return the orange string, okay? Now, on top of this, when I'm doing this, when I'm doing this, what I'm essentially doing, I'm just doing this. This will return to us 0, 1, 2, so A. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. So let's go back here. So like I was saying, arrays are indexed. Guys, 1 second. Okay. Now next is we'll talk about how to modify the arrays. Okay, so we have an array, and how do I modify it? Like by modification, I mean I want to change the contents of the colors array. Like Abhi, let's say I want to change this red value to blue. Now I know the colors of 0 is red, right? So here I will assign this a new value right now. Now when I do console.log of colors, I'll get blue, orange, yellow, and green. What I'm saying here is, see, colors ka 0th index pe, please assign this value. That is all I'm saying. Okay. One more example is if I want to change this thing to something else. So colors of 1 will now be maybe peach. Colors of 3 will be pink. This time we have all new colors here. Okay. Now, like I told you, when I do colors of 4, I get back undefined, right? So I can actually assign a value here. I can say colors of 4, which is currently undefined. I want to add a new color here. Let's say violet. This time I'll get the colors value colors index of 4 violet. And if I just like console.log the entire colors array, so I get back all of these. Okay. This is how you modify the array. Okay. Just what you're saying at each of these places is at this index within the colors array, please assign this value. At this index of this colors array, please assign this value. Okay. This is how you would modify the arrays. Okay. Now next we'll start talking about the array methods. Okay. Now see, guys, we spoke about the string methods, right? We had index of, we had the slice method, we had many methods on strings, and similarly, we also have many methods on arrays. In fact, array has many methods. We'll talk about all of them because you'll be using them very frequently. And arrays are a type of data structure that you will use in every single file almost. So arrays, and when you start talking about objects next, both of these are extremely important and you'll be using them very frequently. Okay. Now let's start talking about different array methods. And the first one of them is the push method, which is used to add an element to the end of the array. Very simple. So let's create an array. Let's say I have numbers array 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now here, if I want to add a new element to the end of the array, I have to just do numbers dot push, and this accepts an argument, and you give an argument of 5. What this will do is, whatever the existing numbers ka array is, usi mein modify karega, which means it adds this number of 5 within the same array. And when you do a console.log of numbers like this, you now get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's add one more element here. Numbers of push of, let's say I'll add this value of true. So I get this value of true also. This time I'll add numbers.push of null. So I get null also. Now the order is very important because inside this array, we are first adding 5, and then we're adding true, and then we're adding null. Let's change this order. Let's make it like this. Okay, in this case, what happens? When I save, I first get true, and then null, and then 5. Okay, we can even do something like this, const empty array. Like this. Initially, it's an empty array. Now, when I try to push an element, let's say 189, I get 189 here. And I can try to push a string. I get the number and the string as well. Okay, this is how you use the push method. Okay, push is just used to add an element to the end of the array. This is very important, end of the array. Next we'll talk about the pop method. And pop method is used to remove an element from the end of the array. Okay, now when I do, let's say, const numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I want to remove the last element from the array, I have to just do numbers.pop. So you do not have to give any argument to pop, because the only thing that pop does is whatever the last element is within the array, it just removes it. So you don't have to pass any argument here. Okay. Now, again, just like push, the pop method also modifies the existing array. So इसी array को वो modify करेगा. Now, when I try to do a console.log of numbers, I get 1, 2, 3, 4, which means if I do it again, 1, 2, 3. If I do it again, 1, 2. If I do it again, 1. If I do it again, 1. What if I do it again this time? Doesn't matter. Now, no matter how many times you add, right? Once the array is empty, it will always be empty. It won't throw any error. Okay. This was about pop. Pop is just used to remove the element from the end of the array. Now, next we have very similar method to push to pop, which is this method called shift. Now, what does pop do? Pop removes the element from the end of the array, and this will remove the element from the start of the array. That is the only difference. Let's try to do the same thing again. I'll copy these lines. I'll uncomment them, and I will change this to numbers.shift. And just like push and pop, the shift method also modifies the existing array. Okay. Now when I do a console.log of numbers, so I get back 2, 3, 4, 5 because 1 is removed. If I do the same thing again, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, same thing again, and 5, same thing again, this one, and same thing again, nothing happens. Which means once the array is empty, both the pop method and the shift method do not have any effect on the empty array. Okay. If you use .pop or .shift on an empty array, it will not throw any error. Okay. That is about the shift method. The last method I want to talk about in this series is actually called the unshift method. What unshift does, it just adds to the start of the array, which means basically it is like push only. But what push does is push adds an element to the end of the array. But unshift adds an element to the start of the array. So we're doing that now. So const numbers again is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And let's try to add an element to the beginning of this array. I have to just do so numbers dot non-shift, and let's add 100. Now, just like push and pop and shift, the unshift method also modifies the existing array. It is this array itself. Now, this time when I do a console.log of numbers, I get back 100, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's add one more number. Let's make it 600. So I get back 600, 100. Why is this happening? So like I said, see, this one will first add here. Like in this will be added after, before this, because the unshift method always adds the elements to the beginning of the array. Okay. So any questions about these 4 methods, guys?
Can we delete using index number? Means I want to delete from the middle of the list, the array.
Got it. So you want to delete the specific. We'll talk about that next. Like there is a method called a splice. Okay, that will let you do what you want.
Okay, sir.
Yep. So any more questions, guys? Okay, let's proceed then. So we are done with 4 methods. Okay, let's move on now. Okay, so the next method I want to talk about is the concat method. Okay, there is a method called concat, which basically stands for concatenation. What concatenation means is you take together 2 things and you join them. One example of concatenation, guys, I want you guys to answer this. Let's say I have a console.log of 25 plus apple. Okay, what do you think the result will be of this? So Rajinder is right. It will result in 25 apple. So when I save now, so I get 25 apple. Basically, this happens because we have string. What the plus operator does is it concatenates these both. And concatenation is nothing but what you see here. It just joins both of them together. This is a example of concatenation using strings. But we can also do concatenation in arrays as well. Okay, let's create an array. So let's create an array called fruits, apple and banana. Let's create veggies array. Let's say as Gus and tomato. We have these both now. Now, if I want to concatenate both of these arrays, which means if I want to like mix both of these arrays into one array, what I can do is use the concat method. So I'll use the fruits dot concat, and I have to give one more array here. Like the fruits array needs to be joined with one more array, which is the veggies array, like this. So if you see here, the result will be apple, banana, which is the fruits array. And after this, we are concatenating the veggies array. Okay, which means the order is important. this will come first, and after this will come next. So if I do the same thing in the opposite way, I'll use the veggies here and I use the fruits here. In this case, the order is reversed. Okay, because like I told you, the concatenation will behave this way. So this is what concatenation is useful for. Basically, you have two arrays and you join them like this. Now, see, when you do this now, what happens is the concat method does not actually modify either of these arrays. It just returns to you a new array, which will give you back this. Okay. Now, when I try to do a console.log of fruits, see, fruits is still unchanged. उसको modify नहीं किया. If it is the same thing with veggies also, उसको भी modify नहीं किया. It means what is happening here is, see, both of these statements here, they just return to you a new array after joining them. So this is not like push and pop and unshift and shift. See, the push, pop, unshift and shift methods, they modify the existing array itself. They do not return a new array. But in this case, the concat method returns to you a new array. It does not modify the existing array. And Rajendra is asking console log fruits. Yeah, so that will not. Let's do that. Okay, let's do console.log of fruits plus veggies. What you get back is this. It's a very weird thing. Okay, this is actually something which you should never do. Like never use the plus operator between two arrays. What it is doing is, so it's converting the entire thing into a string. It's converting this entire thing into a string and then it's joining it. Basically, what it's doing is this fruits will be converted to a string like this. So this will be converted to a string like this. Okay. And then the same thing happened to veggies also. This and this. After this, when you do this here, this will be kind of, so it will take this and it will join it with this. By the way, see guys, like you never have to know any of this, okay? Because you should never do this in the first place. Also, the reason why JavaScript behaves very weird like this is, like I told you in the very beginning of JavaScript class, the guy who created JavaScript, he did it within only 10 days, because of which there are many weird things like this. Okay, but having said that, you might get a thought, you might get a question that, I mean, this is a problem, right? So why didn't they fix it later on? The reason being, see, there is one ideology in JavaScript: never break the web. Because the problem is, there are so many very old websites depending on the older version of JavaScript, which means they never have upgraded themselves to use the latest JavaScript features. Because of which, if you remove any weird issues like this, those websites might break, because for some reason they might be depending on stuff like this. Okay, which is actually a very weird thing. Okay, so but yeah, so never do this. If you need to concatenate arrays, use the concat method. Okay, yeah, so like I was saying, so if you need to get the result of the concatenation, you have to save the result of that. All foods will be fruits.concat of veggies, and this will try to console log all foods. This time we have this new array. Okay, so remember, the concat method returns to you a new array. It does not modify the existing array. Next, let's talk about a very important method called the includes method. Let's do this. Let's talk about the includes method. Okay, Pranjal is asking, I'm confusing between Python and JS. Both syntax and work of attributes are different. How will I practice both without confusion? Good question, Pranjal. So, see, it's all about practice. Like what I would say is, spend. I'll tell you something. See, once you become a full stack developer, right? What is a full stack developer? On the front end, you will be learning JavaScript, obviously. On the back end, you might have to work on something like Python or Node.js or Java, C++, C, whatever it is, which means you will have to eventually learn two very different languages. But if you ask me, in terms of Python and JavaScript, they both are not very different, actually, if you look at it, because the underlying principles are very similar. Like if you talk about, okay, there is a slice method in JavaScript, but there is a slice method in Python as well. Just so the syntax is different. Now, what you should do, Pranjal, is try to focus on the logic and what the feature does. Don't focus a lot on the syntax part. Like for example, see now when I'm teaching you what the concat does, okay, try to understand perfectly what it does. Later on, if you like forget a few things, it's totally fine. As a programmer, you're not expected to remember of every single thing. Okay, you will uh, you'll have to Google a lot after you get a job. Also, in fact, Googling stuff is a part of every programmer's DNA. Okay, what I'm trying to say is don't worry too much about the syntax part. Whenever you're learning something, learn that very well. Make sure that the concept is sitting in your brain very well. Later on, if you forget stuff, it's totally fine. Go back and read again. Go back and read on MDN or whatever, Google Karo, and relearn that. But the only way to become good in both of this is to keep practicing. So every single day, let's say that if you're studying for 4 hours, uh, spend 2 or 3 hours on something which you prefer more. If you uh, if you prefer like the front end more, learn that more. If you prefer back end more, learn Python more. So basically, just do that. Okay. Rather than so I would never suggest you to use W3 School because that is very outdated and not a good website at all. My recommendation is choose MDN. Okay. MDN is backed by companies like Google, Microsoft, all of those companies. Okay, W3 School is a very old website, very outdated. So please don't use that. All right. So that is what I want to talk about. Yeah. So Pranjal, don't worry too much about that. Just keep like spending more time on one of those. Also, see, in the beginning of your journey, it's difficult to know both of them equally well. So you decide what you prefer more. You want to become a friend. You want to gain expertise in front end or back end. Based on that, you focus more on that area. Once you become really good in one area, then learn the other things. And one last thing I want to say here is, see, what usually happens is once you learn one programming language really well, learning anything else becomes very easy because the core concepts in every language are pretty much the same. Like you guys have told me that you've learned about list, right? Or list and array are the same thing. Now list and array are the same thing. And Python also has variables, and Python also has if conditions. They have else conditions. You have so a lot of similarities between all the programming languages. So what you have to do is choose one programming language and go really in depth. Once you like are very good uh, at any one language, now then learning anything else will become very easy. That's what I did actually. So I first learned Python many years back. I was very good at it, and then I jumped into JavaScript. And when I was learning JavaScript, I went through it very quickly because Python का expertise था मुझे, so I was able to learn this very quickly. So anyway, that's what I want to talk about. Guys, we'll take a break of 5 minutes. So it's 10:03 now. We'll come back at 10:10, and then we'll continue the class till 10:30. Is that fine? Okay. Thank you. I'll see you at 10:10. Guys, I'm back. Let's get going. Okay. So we're talking about the next method, which is the includes method. So includes method is very simple and very useful also. So let's say that you have names array. Aditya, Abhishek, and Margaret. So you have this the 4 names. If I want to check if a particular value exists within this array or not, okay, I want to check if a particular value exists within this names array or not. So I can use dot includes for that. Okay, so I can check key names console.log of names dot includes. So I want to check if the name called Aditya is included or not. So I get back a Boolean value. Because I'm asking a question here. मैं पूछ रहा हूँ कि hey names array, do you contain this string called Aditya or not? And the names and this includes method will return a Boolean value, true or false. Same thing when I try to search with Bhavna, I get true here. But if I try to search with something like this, something which doesn't exist within the array, then it returns to me a false value. So dot includes will return to you a true value or a false value. If the value exists within the array, you get back a true value. If the value doesn't exist within the array, you get back a false value. That is dot includes. Now next, we'll talk about this method called index of. This you guys already know. Okay, we have used this method in string. That is the same exact thing in arrays also. Let's say you have you have movies, and Man, and Deadpool, Spider-Man, and Captain America. We have these 4 movies. Now I want to check what is the index of Iron Man within this array. So I'll just do a console.log of movies.index of, and I type in the value of which I want to get the index of. Okay. So I want this value. I want to know what is the index of this value within the array. So I get back 0 here. And if I try to type Deadpool, I get 1. If I type Spider-Man, I get back 2. If I try to type Captain America, I get back 3, which is the index of this value within this array. Now you guys tell me, if I try to type like something which does not exist here, like if I try to type like Thor, what do you think the value would be? What is the index? What will index of return when it doesn't find the index of that number? So Pranjal is right. It returns -1. When I hit save, I get back -1 here. If I try to search for, let's say, something like 111, which does not exist within the array, it returns to me -1 here. Okay, that is how index of works. Now, next thing is we have this method called join. Here's one more thing. See, I know I'm going through a lot of methods here, but I don't want you to focus on memorizing it. Okay, you might like forget them later on. All I want you to focus on is when I'm teaching you that, okay, so at that specific point of time, are you understanding it or not? Well, that is very important, because when I'm teaching you, if you're able to understand something, when you, even if you like forget it after a week or something, when you go back to MDN and check there, you will remember. You remember it much faster. Okay, so when I'm teaching you right now, make sure you're able to understand every single thing. If you don't understand, please stop and ask me. Okay. So next thing is a method called join. So let's say you have this this const names again. I'll copy the same thing. Okay, so I have an array of names. If I want to convert the entire array into one string, then I can use names.join. One second. Console.log of names of join. Now, when I do names of join like this, by default, it just gives you one string where every element is separated by a comma. But you can also give it a different delimiter. By delimiter, I mean with what do you want to separate them? Like instead of a comma, if I want to separate them by a hyphen, I can give it like this. And then it separates everything using a hyphen. Let's say if I want to separate everything using maybe like this. It separates everything like this. So I can basically give whatever string you want, you can give it here. Let's say I'll give like this. So I get this thing here between every element like this. Okay, that's what the join method does. Join method is basically used to convert the array into one string. Okay, so you take an entire array and you convert that to a single string. That's the join array. Guys, any doubts in these three methods? No doubts? Okay, cool. I'll proceed then. Next, we have the reverse method. Include. Okay, so I'll talk about the include method again. Okay, what the include method does is, let's say I want to search whether a particular element exists within the array or not. Like I have this array of names, where I have 4 strings here. So I want to check if this name called Udaya exists within this array or not. Okay, so I have to basically give the element which I have to check if it exists or not within this array. So I can give this thing called Aditya here, and it returns me the value of true, because the dot includes to here, that will return to a Boolean value, which means if this element exists within this array, then that returns you a true value. But if this element does not exist within this array, then that returns you a false value. Like this. This will return a value of false because this element does not exist here. But if you give an element which exists within the array, you get back a true value. So is that clear, Ajinder? Okay, cool. So includes is also done. Okay, now next let's talk about this method called reverse. So what happens in reverse is, let's say you have a numbers array 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So if you want to reverse this array, which means you want to create an array which basically has 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so इस array को reverse करना है. Then you can use the reverse का this one. So you can do console.log of numbers.reverse. Very straightforward. There's nothing complicated at all. Again, like I told you, so numbers.reverse will return to you a new array. So if I try to do like numbers.reverse here, and then if I try to console log the numbers array, okay, this is a good lesson, like good good example to show you that even I don't remember everything. Even I forgot that this numbers.reverse jo hai, this actually changes the existing array itself, and it returns you a new array. So it'll actually do it does 2 things at once. First of all, this will modify the existing array, and this will also return to you a new array. For example, I'm trying to say const new array. So if I try to console log this, now I get back the same value. Basically, one more thing is when I'm saying new array, this will basically just return this modified array only. What I'm trying to say is, see, when you do numbers.reverse, first of all, ये existing array को reverse करके उसी array को फिर से return करता है. So that is what we're storing here, and that is what we print out here. Okay, that is what the reverse thing does. So it just modifies the existing array by reversing all the elements. So it just reverses the existing array. That's what the reverse method does. Okay, next let's talk about slice method. So slice method, you guys already know from the string thing. So the way you slice a string, you would slice an array also the same way. So let's say you have names here. I'll copy the same names again, like this. So this time I want to slice this array such that I get only the first two elements. Okay, now you guys tell me how can I slice it? Names.slice. What should be the arguments? I want only the first two arguments. Is what do you think? 0, 2. Okay. So Rohit has given the answer in Python, but yeah, so the values can, so basically you start from 0. So which means you start from here. Now we want only this. But if I give only 1 here, what this means is you're starting from 0 and up to 1, but not including 1, which means we get back only the first one. So if we want to include this thing also, we have to do 2 here. Because what this means is you start from 0, you include 0, but you don't include this, which means you go up to 2. You start with 0 and you go up to 2. So this will again, now one important thing about slice is, slice will not modify the existing array, which means if I try to do console.log of names here, see, nothing changes because slice is a method which does not modify the existing array, but it actually returns to you a new array, a completely brand new array. And if I try to console log this, I get back the actual answer. Okay, this is what the slice method does. Now, so let's say if I want from this to the very end, okay, I have to just do 1 and that's it. So I get back the 3 values. 1 के बाद अगर कुछ नहीं है, then automatically slice will go to the very end of the array. Okay. Basically, guys, the way the slice method behaves in string and array is exactly the same. No difference at all. Okay, that's how the slice method works. Now, one more thing is, let's say you just want to create a copy of the array. You don't want to change anything. You just want to create a copy of the array, which means you want all the elements as it is. In that case, you just remove the number. That will give you back the entire array. You can either remove the number and not give anything to create a new copy, or you can pass in the value 0 here. So even if you pass 0 also, this will start from the first element and go till the very end. Okay, that's what the slice method does. Okay, now last, and this will be a little complicated, but we'll talk about this. Okay. Now Pranjal had asked a question before. So how do you remove an element at a specific index, right? That is what this splice method is used for. So splice method, 1 second. I'm just trying to see something in my notes. Okay, so let's talk about the splice method. Remember, this is a slice method. What we're going to talk about next is a splice method. They're both are very different. So let's say you have a again names array. I'll copy this. Okay, so names dot splice. Now this takes three different arguments. Okay, first argument is which index do you want to start with. Okay, let's say I want to start at index 1, so I give 1 here. Next you give the next argument is how many elements do you want to remove. Okay, let's say I want to remove only one element, which is this, so I say 1. Okay, when I save this, the first difference is here the splice method will modify the existing array and it does not return a new array. It just modifies the existing array, which means if I try to now do console.log of names, this name is removed. Let me tell you again what I've done. Okay, see what my goal is. My goal is to remove the second element from this array. Okay, I want to remove the element at index 1 from this array. So I can use the splice method. Names.splice. The first argument is what is the location of that element. What is the index of that element? The index is what? 0, 1. Index is 1. Next argument is how many elements do you want to remove? So I want to remove only this element. So I'll just type 1 here. And do console.log of names. I see that the name second name is removed. Now let's say I want to remove these both names. Okay, so how can I do that? So first of all, the index would be what? 0, 1, and 2. So index would be 2. And the second argument is how many elements do you want to remove? I want to remove 1 and 2. I want to remove 2 elements. So I'll type 2 here. Now when I check for names, I get only the first 2. The last 2 are removed. Okay, this is how the splice works. But there's one last thing about splice. No. So apart from removing, you can also add the elements from this index, which means, let's say, so I want to remove the index at I want to remove the element at index 1. I want to remove one element and I want to add one element, which can be like this. What this means is, see, like I said, again, the first argument is nothing but what is the index of the element. Index is 1, okay, which means this one. I want to remove it, so I've removed it. At the same index, I'll be adding this new value. So I'll do a console.log of names. I get the new value like this. Basically, what I'm doing here is I'm replacing an element at a particular index with some other element. Now, one more thing. What if I don't want to remove any element? I just want to add an element. Okay, and I want to add an element at the index 1, after index 1. Okay, so after index 1, I want to add an element. So I can do, see, at index 1, don't remove anything, but just add this new value. So if I try to do a console.log of names, what I get is, see, at index 1, it will be added here, and then everything will be pushed here, like this. So at index 1, I'm adding Madhusudan, and everything else will be pushed after that. But I'm not removing anything here. Okay, so I'll give you more examples. Okay, let's say I want to remove the last element, and that's it. I don't want to add anything. So I have to just do names. I have to just do a console.log of names dot display, and I want to remove the last element. So 0, 1, 2, 3. So the third element, I want to remove one element. So this time when I do a console.log of names, last element is removed. Okay. One more example. So I want to remove the first element and replace it with one name. So I have to just do names.splice. So at index 0, I want to remove one element and replace it with one element like this. Replace ho gaya hai. One last thing to remember, guys, is you can add multiple values here. So I'm adding Aryan, I'm adding SRK, I'm adding Suzanne like this. Which means at the 0th index, after I remove one element, I'm adding these three elements, which means this will start at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Guys, is this clear? Everything about splice? Okay, Pranjal says yes. What about others? Rajendra? Okay, so first I will repeat slice again because Rajendra wants me to. So we'll talk about slice. Okay, so we have here an array of names. What I want to do to, okay, so first of all, what is the English meaning of slice? Let's say you have a bread, but you're slicing it. You have a fruit, you're slicing it. So we can slice the array. Okay. Let's say I want to slice an array such that I only get back the first two elements. I want to slice this portion of the array. मुझे ये पूरा नहीं चाहिए. I don't want the entire pizza. I want only two slices. So I don't want the entire array. So I want only this slice. So I have to just give the starting index, which is this is inclusive, which means 0 se include karke and up to 2, but not including 2. So just giving the value of 2 here, it means 0 se leke 2 tak. Lekin 2 is not included. 1 is included. And hence we get back the first 2 here. Let's say I want the first 3. I have to give 0, 1, 2, and 3. So I have to give 3 here because 0 is inclusive, including 0, like not including 3, and up to 3. So you get back 0, 1, and 2. Let's say I want the entire array. So I have to just not give anything like this. So which means this returns to me a new copy of the array. Let's say I want to start from the first index and go to the very end. So I start at 1, including 1, and then that's it. You don't have to give the last index if you want to go to the very last. Because if you do not give the second argument, slice will automatically take the last element. One last thing is slice does not modify the existing array. It only returns to you a brand new array. Okay. So is that clear, Rajinder? Okay, cool. So we'll stop the session here, guys. I'll see you next week. Okay. Guys, have a good weekend. Bye-bye. Take care.